She didn't just betray me, she thought she was smart enough to step over me without consequences. It was 11:17 p.m. in Portland. March rain tapped against the kitchen windows like an impatient guest. I remember the way the condensation curled at the edges of the glass, blurring the city lights outside into a watercolor smear of gold and blue. The house was silent, save for the low hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock that Clarissa insisted was too old-fashioned. I liked that clock. It was honest. Predictable. Unlike people. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sifting through spreadsheets on my laptop, client portfolios, quarterly performance reports, tax loss harvesting options, when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen, Clarissa. She was supposed to be in San Diego for a pharmaceutical conference. I didn't hesitate to answer. I already knew what was coming. You can feel it in your bones when something is about to fall apart, like a vibration under the skin. Her voice was calm, unnaturally so. The kind of calm that's been practiced in a mirror, that sounds like confidence but tastes like guilt. "Marcus," she said. "I need to tell you something." I closed my laptop gently, my fingers resting on the lid like it was a patient in surgery. "I'm not coming back," she continued. "I've met someone. Caleb. He's my boss. We're together now." I said nothing. Not because I was shocked, but because I wanted her to fill the silence with her justifications. It's incredible what people will confess when they think you're broken. "He gets me," she added. "He sees what I can be. He makes me feel like I'm not wasting my time, or my life." There was a beat of silence, and then she twisted the knife. "I already moved the money. From the joint investment account. It's done." I could hear the clink of glass in the background, the distorted thump of bass. Laughter. Male laughter. "You're not in San Diego," I said quietly. "That's a bar." "Miami, isn't it?" There was a pause. That 1 second of hesitation told me everything I needed to know. "You always notice the little things," she muttered. "It's exhausting." I didn't respond to that. Instead, I asked, "How much?" She exhaled. "All of it. You won't have to worry. I'm leaving you the house." How generous. Like she was doing me a favor. I pressed my tongue against the inside of my cheek, considering the weight of her words. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't surprised. I was relieved. Relieved that the mask had finally come off. "Take care, Clarissa," I said, and ended the call. The phone sat face down on the counter. I didn't pick it back up. Instead, I reopened the laptop, fingers steady, and logged into our financial portal. A transfer request blinked on the screen, $198,000, initiated, pending. Not completed. Clarissa had no idea. 8 months ago, I'd started restructuring everything. Quietly. Systematically. The joint account was nothing more than a decoy, a stage set with hollow furniture and drawn curtains. The real money, $805,000, sat in a private trust under my name alone. Legally sound. Untouchable. Ironclad. I built it the same way I build portfolios, conservative in risk, aggressive in defense. With contingencies. Safeguards. Two-factor authentication. She hadn't noticed a thing. Not even when she signed the paperwork, distracted, tapping away at her phone under the dinner table. I remember watching her that night, wine glass in one hand, fork untouched. She smiled across the table, said she was proud of me. I filed her signature away with the rest of the documents. She thought she could take everything and vanish. A clean break. But I wasn't the man I used to be, the one who begged for second chances, who forgave betrayal with a half smile and a bottle of wine. I had learned. Slowly. Quietly. There was no rage, no yelling, no storm of shattered glass or broken chairs. just precision. That's what they never understand about men like me. We don't fight back with fists or screams. We plan. And now. The game had started. I closed the laptop, stood, and walked to the window. Outside, rain traced paths down the glass like tiny rivers, carving through the blur of neon. I could still hear the ghost of her voice in my ear, the cold certainty with which she declared her departure. The smugness. The assumption that she had outmaneuvered me. But she hadn't realized that she'd never been playing the game. She was the game. I poured a glass of scotch and drank it slowly, the burn crawling down my throat, settling into the hollowness of my chest like coals under a bed of ash. I thought about Caleb. I wondered if he laughed when she told him she cleaned out our account. Maybe he toasted to it, thinking he'd pulled off some great heist. But what they both failed to see, what neither of them could even imagine, was that this wasn't a heist. It was a setup. I had spent years building the architecture of my life to withstand storms. And now the first winds had arrived, and I wasn't running for shelter, I was stepping outside. I would let them believe they'd won. I would let them laugh, drink, celebrate. Because by the time they realized the cost of their betrayal, the foundations beneath them would already be crumbling. Clarissa once said I was too cautious. Too quiet. She was right. But she mistook silence for weakness. And that was her first mistake. Not her last. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't try. Sleep implies rest. Peace. Maybe even resolution. I had none of those. Instead, I sat in my office, lights off, staring into the dark where outlines of bookshelves and mahogany edges whispered stories I didn't want to hear. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. My Scotch glass, now warm in my hand, sat half-finished. On the desk in front of me was a photograph, framed, dusted, deliberate. It was taken 16 years ago, on the steps of the Portland Financial Exchange. Clarissa stood beside me, arms wrapped around mine, eyes bright with the kind of ambition that looks beautiful until it turns cold. We had just presented a joint paper on hybrid portfolio risk mitigation. People clapped. Industry heads nodded. We were called a rising power couple. We believed it. 17 years ago, we met at a finance seminar in Boston. I remember the exact dress she wore, gray, clean lines, a scarlet scarf knotted too tightly around her neck like she'd forgotten how to breathe. She asked a question the speaker couldn't answer. I answered it instead. She followed me out after the panel. I liked that. The boldness. The confidence. She wasn't afraid to challenge me. We had the same hunger back then, her for recognition, me for security. Together, we made a force, and for a while, we moved like one. I loved her with a kind of reverence I didn't know how to express in words. So I built her a life. A house with steel beams and cedar walls. Investment accounts named after the constellations she admired. Vacations she barely remembered because she was already planning the next promotion. But the cracks, they always start small. After 3 years of trying to conceive, we sat in a sterile clinic, surrounded by plastic plants and posters of smiling couples holding chubby babies. I still remember the doctor's face, apologetic, clinical, distant. Low sperm count. Unlikely to be successful without significant intervention. Clarissa didn't cry in the office. She waited until the car ride home. Her sobs came in waves, loud and raw. I held her hand, promised we'd try adoption, IVF, anything. But she pulled away, eyes locked on the windshield like the future was speeding away from her and she had no intention of chasing it anymore. We never talked about it again. From then on, our connection dulled. Conversations were reduced to schedules and travel itineraries. Our bedroom turned into a quiet negotiation of routines, clockwork intimacy that neither of us truly felt. She immersed herself in work. I dove deeper into client portfolios, complex trusts, capital preservation. Numbers don't judge. Numbers never ask why. Then, 7 years ago, she found the Cayman documents. A shell company. A private offshore account. Yes, it was illegal. No, it wasn't necessary. It was ego. I wanted to prove I could play the same game the hedge fund titans played, even if I stayed in the shadows. When she confronted me, I told her the truth, or at least a version of it. I said I'd close the account. I said it had nothing to do with us. She forgave me. Or so I thought. Forgiveness is tricky. Some people offer it like a gift. Others sharpen it into a weapon. Clarissa didn't forgive to heal. She forgave to control. To watch me squirm in debt to her mercy. I saw it in the way she looked at me differently afterward, not with love, not even with suspicion, but calculation. After that, her transformation was subtle at first. More conferences. More mentorship dinners. Promotions that didn't quite line up with her skill set but always arrived conveniently. She became a master of the art of presence, knowing when to speak, when to laugh, when to step aside and let powerful men feel smarter. She climbed. Relentlessly. Beautifully. Ruthlessly. I let her climb. I told myself it was just ambition. A phase. A hunger like the one I'd once admired. I wanted to believe that. I needed to. But last year, the illusion shattered. It was a spring gala, something hosted by Osmera Therapeutics to honor regional executives and their spouses. Caleb Stone, Clarissa's boss, had only recently been promoted to senior vice president. I met him that night for the first time, strong jaw, laugh too loud, handshake like a politician's. But it was the moment on the dance floor that ended everything I still pretended to believe in. Clarissa and Caleb danced together, too close for professional. His hand rested low on her back, fingers tracing the zipper of her dress. Then, he took her hand, turned her toward him, said something in her ear. She smiled. And she didn't pull away. I was 10 feet away. Watching. Waiting. Hoping, for some reason, that she would shake her head, step back, give me something to cling to. But she didn't. That night, I opened a new folder on my private hard drive, Project Silence. It was the night I stopped loving her. Or perhaps the night I admitted I hadn't loved her in years, only the memory of who she used to be. From that day on, I observed instead of engaging. I tracked her calendar, noted inconsistencies. Dinner receipts in cities she wasn't supposed to be in. Phone records. Emails. Password changes. I didn't confront. I didn't accuse. I gathered. Clarissa taught me that. When you want to destroy someone, you don't scream at them across a table. You let them think they've won. You let them bury the knife themselves, then show them the autopsy report. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had once betrayed her through greed and pride. Now she was betraying me through ambition and calculation. The difference? I came clean. She planned her betrayal like a hostile takeover, methodical, rehearsed, ruthless. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that I had been building the firewall for years. And the moment she smiled at Caleb on that dance floor, the countdown began. People think revenge is loud. That it comes with shouting matches, broken glasses, and fists slamming into walls. They think it's red hot and wild. They're wrong. Revenge, when done right, is cold. It's surgical. It breathes in silence and moves in shadows. It's not a reaction. It's a design. After the gala, after Clarissa's hand lingered in Caleb's for a few seconds too long, I stopped being her husband. I became her observer. Her historian. Her quiet executioner. She didn't notice at first. That was the brilliance of it. I played the same role I'd always played, the dutiful, dependable Marcus. The man she could lie to with impunity. I cooked dinner. Paid the bills. Kissed her cheek. Asked how her conferences went and smiled when she said, productive. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I built. The first step was the financial firewall. I'd already shifted our major assets into a trust under my name 8 months ago, back when her travel pattern stopped matching her company's calendar and she changed the passcode on her laptop. Clarissa had always hated the admin side of our life. She left the banking, the investments, the taxes to me. So she didn't blink when I asked her to sign updated forms for our retirement optimization. She signed everything over eggs Benedict and mimosas, smiling while texting someone beneath the table. She didn't read a word. She never did. After the trust was secured, I turned to the decoy. I left just enough funds in the joint investment account to keep up appearances, $198,000. Enough to tempt. Not enough to destroy. And then, I waited. It came, as expected, on a Thursday night in March. Her call. Her declaration. Her theft. But the real plan didn't begin with the money. It began the next morning, when the doorbell rang and Jenna stood on my porch. Clarissa's best friend. Or, more accurately, her watchdog. The one she used when she wanted to keep her hands clean. Jenna looked uncomfortable, like a guest showing up to a wake instead of a robbery. She clutched her purse like it might explode. She asked me to pick up a few things, she said. Her winter clothes. And her jewelry box. I nodded slowly. Of course. I led her inside. The house still smelled faintly of Clarissa's perfume, jasmine and some citrusy top note that used to drive me mad in the best way. Now it felt like stale smoke. She also wanted me to check whether the transfer went through. There it was. I turned to face her fully. Ah. Right. The transfer. I walked to my laptop on the kitchen island, clicked open the banking dashboard, and turned the screen toward her. Pending, I said. Large transfers require dual authentication. She forgot, every good system has a final gatekeeper. Jenna nodded, clearly unsure if she should relay that message back. She took the clothes and the jewelry and left. She never looked me in the eye. That night, I did something I'd been putting off for weeks. I retrieved a tiny pinhole camera, smaller than a pencil eraser, from my office drawer and mounted it discreetly behind the bedroom mirror. The angle caught the bottom of the closet and the far corner of the dresser. By Monday, I had footage. Clarissa had left in a hurry. She hadn't taken everything. And what she hadn't taken was even more interesting. Behind a stack of shoe boxes, tucked behind an old coat neither of us had worn in years, was a steel lockbox. I opened the closet. The box was still there. It was heavy, probably 10 pounds, and locked with a cheap dial. I cracked it in 3 minutes. When I lifted the lid, I wasn't surprised to find a USB drive wrapped in a silk scarf, and a single folded note. I unfolded it slowly. If you're reading this, I've chosen Caleb. But don't flatter yourself. I know about Scottsdale. And I know about Cayman. My stomach clenched, not in fear, but in fascination. So she had known. The Scottsdale deal had happened nearly 6 years ago, during a fund transition I never disclosed. Technically legal. Ethically murky. And Cayman? She had no real proof, just breadcrumbs. But it was enough to let me know she hadn't just been reacting to betrayal. She'd been planning her own. I stared at the USB for a long time before plugging it in. Password protected. I tried 3 before it hit me, Paloma. Her old nickname for me. Spanish for dove. She used to say I was the only calm in her chaos. I typed it. The drive opened. Just one file. A video. Clarissa sat in what looked like our bedroom. The light was dim, but she was dressed like she'd come from work. Her blazer still on. Hair tight. Lipstick precise. She stared directly into the camera, like she was looking at me across time. You always think 3 moves ahead, Marcus. But what happens when someone else is playing a different game? Her voice was even, cool. Calculated. You lied to me. I knew you did. But I stayed. Not because I forgave you. Because I wanted to see how far you'd go to cover it. She leaned closer to the camera. You think I didn't notice the restructuring? The meetings you took with that boutique firm in Scottsdale? The sudden trips to advise clients in Manhattan? She smiled. A tired, sad smile. We both built lies, Marcus. The difference is, I turned mine into leverage. And you turned yours into a trap. The screen went black. I sat there for a long time after the video ended. I wasn't sure what I felt. Admiration? Hatred? Guilt? Clarissa hadn't been blind. She hadn't been naive. She had known everything, and still played her part to the very end. She had gathered her own evidence, left her own trail, spoken her own monologue into a lens she knew I'd eventually see. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a warning. It was a challenge. And I wasn't about to back down. Because even if she thought she was playing me, she didn't know that the trust fund was only one layer of the net I'd cast. She didn't know what else I'd documented. Who else I'd spoken to. Or that I had one more ace up my sleeve, and it had nothing to do with Cayman or Caleb. Clarissa may have written her move into a camera. But I had already written the ending. And now it was just a matter of hitting play. By the time I met Alexis Quinn, I was no longer hunting for closure. I was collecting evidence. Ammunition. Leverage. Closure was for people who believed in apologies. Alexis was the kind of woman who always walked like she was 3 steps ahead of her own shadow. Head of Human Resources at Osmera Therapeutics, she'd been a fixture at Clarissa's holiday parties for years, always cordial, always well-dressed, and always watching. We met at a quiet cafe on the east side, chosen specifically because no one from Osmera would be caught dead there. She arrived 10 minutes late, which I took as a negotiation tactic. Power play. Let the other party sweat. I didn't mind. I had all the time in the world. And she wasn't the only one who knew how to play games. She sat across from me, didn't order coffee, and slid a small thumb drive across the table. This never happened, she said, her voice low but sharp. I didn't reach for the drive immediately. Instead, I studied her. Hair pinned neatly. Minimal jewelry. No emotion in her eyes. Why now? I asked. Alexis paused. Because I'm tired of watching talented women burn themselves down for men who promised them more than promotions. I said nothing. She took that as invitation enough to continue. Caleb's done this before, she said. 3 women. All in lower or mid-level positions. He seduced them, convinced them to betray their teams, their companies, sometimes their husbands. Said it would be worth it. Then he cut them off once their usefulness expired. And Osmera looked the other way? I asked. Her jaw tensed. Caleb's father sits on the board. His name opens doors. Even ones that should stay closed. I picked up the thumb drive, turned it over in my fingers. What's on here? Emails. Private correspondence between Caleb and Clarissa. Over 14 months' worth. I slipped the drive into my pocket. Why not go to the board? Or the authorities? Because then I'd be dragged into it. And I still have a career to protect. She looked up, her gaze unflinching. But you? You've already lost what matters. You have nothing left to lose. That makes you useful. And just like that, she was gone. I didn't open the files until I got home. I wanted to be alone when I saw what I already suspected, confirmed in black and white. The drive contained dozens of emails, organized by date, with timestamps that traced a timeline I'd already lived through. The first one was almost benign, flirtation masked as professional encouragement. Caleb, you're too smart to be wasted in middle management, Clarissa. You deserve more. The second came weeks later, more direct. Caleb, dinner next Friday. Bring the analytics file on Project Lumina. I have some ideas for expansion strategy. Miami could use someone with your vision. Clarissa responded almost immediately. I'll be there. The file will be ready. And, thank you for seeing what Marcus never did. The correspondence grew more explicit over time, not just romantically, but strategically. Clarissa began forwarding restricted R&D materials, formula sheets, pipeline development schedules, internal cost analyses. She knew what she was doing. The email subjects were vague, the language careful. But the attachments were damning. Then came the message that settled any lingering doubt about where she stood. Caleb, once you've gotten everything from the advisor, we cut him loose. Miami is yours. Title. Office. Bonus. Just make sure he's too busy bleeding to notice. That one I read 3 times. Slowly. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was extermination. Clarissa hadn't just fallen into something. She hadn't been manipulated. She knew. She plotted. She measured the risks. She understood that if I retaliated recklessly, if I reported her or tried to expose her without proof, I could be the one charged with defamation, obstruction, or worse. The documents she sent Caleb were proprietary. Trade secrets. If Clarissa claimed I'd known, or helped, or even looked the other way, I'd be complicit. She was using me as both shield and scapegoat. Let that sink in. The woman I had once sworn to protect had calculated that I could go to prison more easily than Caleb. That I was softer. More disposable. Less powerful. She had been playing chess on a board I built with my own hands. And she wasn't even hiding anymore. I scrolled through a series of messages from just a month ago. Caleb, he's too passive. It's perfect. He'll blame himself. Clarissa, he already does. Guilt is his default setting. Guilt. Yes. For the years I worked too late. For the secrets I kept. For the child we never had. For the lie I told her about Cayman. For the marriage I couldn't salvage. But guilt is not the same as weakness. And they mistook the silence of a thinking man for the impotence of a broken one. Clarissa knew about Cayman. But she didn't know that I'd already reported myself to the IRS through a voluntary disclosure program last year, quietly, preemptively. I paid the fine. The account was closed. Case settled. She thought she had a loaded gun, but I'd already removed the firing pin. That was her fatal mistake. They both had them. Caleb's mistake was arrogance. He thought charm was a substitute for strategy. That a string of affairs made him invincible. He didn't realize that repeating a tactic is the fastest way to be predictable. Clarissa's mistake was simpler. She assumed I wouldn't fight. But I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was focused. Everything I needed to destroy them was now on that drive. Dates. IP theft. Internal communications that could cripple Osmara in litigation. Clarissa's fingerprints were all over every file. Caleb's instructions were written in digital ink. I started building the outline of the case that night. Redacted copies of emails. Metadata. A backup drive stored off-site. A secondary copy encrypted in the cloud. But I wasn't ready to go nuclear. Not yet. First, I wanted to see how far they would go. How deeply Clarissa would dig her own grave before realizing the shovel was rigged to explode. The next morning, I reached out to Thomas, my lawyer, my longtime friend. I handed him the drive. I explained everything. He didn't flinch. "This is enough," he said. "We could end her career. Caleb's too. Maybe even bring down Ozmira's R&D leadership." "I'm not after careers," I said. "Not yet. I want leverage. Enough to name my terms, and make sure she doesn't fight them. And if she does?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Then we burn everything." He nodded. "You're sure about this?" "I'm not just sure. I'm ready." What neither of them had grasped was this. I didn't want revenge because of what they took. I wanted it because of what they tried to leave behind. Me. Broken. Humiliated. Forgotten. But I wasn't broken. I was reassembled. Colder. Sharper. Calibrated for precision. They thought they'd left me behind in the wreckage. But I had become the wrecking ball. And the countdown had just begun. The moment the conference room door clicked shut behind Clarissa and her attorney, Carlton Hayes, time slowed. She looked older than I remembered. Or maybe just thinner. Stress showed differently on Clarissa. It didn't crack her composure, but it hollowed her eyes, tightened her smile. Her hair was perfect, of course, her suit tailored, her heels sharp enough to be used as weapons. But something beneath it all was fraying. Carlton sat stiffly beside her, the kind of corporate divorce attorney who had spent years drafting deals that tore families apart with grace and polish. Thomas Boone, my attorney, my supposed friend, was already seated across from me, silent, unreadable. I still trusted him then. Foolishly. The small talk died fast. "We appreciate your willingness to meet," Carlton began. "We're here in good faith to negotiate a fair settlement." Thomas didn't bother pretending. He reached into the leather binder beside him and slid a packet of documents across the table. Neatly stapled. Highlighted. Titled in large, bold font, "Counterproposal." Carlton flipped it open and scanned. His brow furrowed by page 2. "This is a joke," he said. 50,000. No alimony. No shared assets. "No joke," Thomas said smoothly. "Our client is prepared to offer this amount in exchange for a complete waiver of future claims, the dissolution of all joint financial obligations, and a non-disclosure agreement pertaining to both the marriage and Clarissa's role in the events surrounding Ozmira's R&D breach." Clarissa's hand twitched slightly. She hadn't spoken yet. She was watching me, waiting for me to break. I didn't blink. Carlton's voice rose half a notch. "You're threatening her with exposure." "No," I said calmly. "I'm giving her a choice." Clarissa's lips parted, and her composure cracked, finally. "You're blackmailing me." I leaned forward, placing the printed email on the table with deliberate care. It was from her to Caleb, time-stamped 2 weeks before our separation. Attached is the revised compound analysis. Let me know if Caleb needs the side effect metrics by Friday. A second email followed it, Caleb's reply, praising her for getting past the firewall so quickly. Clarissa's eyes didn't move from the page. "You shouldn't have access to those." I gave a small shrug. "And you shouldn't have sent them. But here we are." She stood suddenly, her chair scraping the floor. "This is insane. You can't use private messages like this in court." Thomas remained unfazed. "We haven't filed anything. Yet. But if we do, we'll be sure to include a motion for discovery. You know how thorough the federal process is when dealing with IP theft and interstate communications." Clarissa's face twisted. "You'll ruin me." I met her gaze for the first time in weeks. Not as a husband. Not as a victim. But as an equal in war. "No," I said. "You ruined yourself. I'm just declining to carry the body." She sat down slowly, jaw clenched, her lawyer whispering something sharp and fast beside her ear. And then silence. The rest of the meeting passed in static. Thomas handled the logistics. Dates. Signatures. Conditions. I barely heard any of it. I was watching Clarissa, wondering how much of her performance was real, and how much was still a mask. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks. Deep. Dreamless. The next morning, the business news headlines practically buzzed. Ozmira executive resigns amid internal investigation. Caleb Stone. Out. Effective immediately. The article was brief, polished, and vague. But I knew what it meant. I had won. The email I'd sent anonymously, just enough to implicate Caleb, not Clarissa, had hit its mark. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply exhaled. Until I received the message. It came from an encrypted address, no name. Just a line of text and a single audio attachment. You're not the only one who knows how to plant traps. Ask your lawyer about Scottsdale. My blood went cold. Scottsdale. I hadn't heard that word spoken out loud in years. But Clarissa had written it in her note, and now, someone else had said it, too. I played the audio. It was a recording, crackly, slightly distorted, but unmistakable. Clarissa's voice. You said you could bury the Cayman exposure, Ronald. And that if I gave you the Scottsdale details, we could pin this all on Caleb. A pause. Then Boone's voice, cautious but clear. I've done everything to keep Marcus clean in the eyes of the board. But if he ever finds out you gave me those files, it's over. Clarissa again, quieter. He doesn't suspect you. He never has. The file ended there. I sat in my kitchen, still in my undershirt, staring at the screen as the truth unraveled like thread pulled from a tightly knit mask. Ronald Boone. My lawyer. My friend. My confidant for over a decade. The man who drafted the trust. Who structured my financial firewall. Who had sat next to me, calmly dismantling my wife. He had been talking to her. And not just talking, collaborating. Feeding her information. Accepting leverage. Possibly manipulating me from the start. What else had he known? What else had he done? My hands trembled slightly. Not with fear. Not with rage. With betrayal. This was the part of the game I hadn't prepared for, not betrayal from an enemy, but from an ally. From the person standing behind you, holding your coat, and a dagger. I didn't call Thomas. Not yet. I didn't send a reply to the anonymous email. I didn't go full tilt into suspicion. Not immediately. Instead, I poured a drink. Sat in the dark. And thought. Because now, I wasn't just dealing with Clarissa and Caleb. I was dealing with the rot inside my own defense. They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from someone you trust. They're wrong. It cuts deepest when it comes from someone who helped you draw the blueprint. And I had just realized. The house I'd built to trap them. Might have been built with poisoned nails. Caleb Stone resigned on a Friday morning under the weight of personal misconduct and internal violations. The press release was sanitized, scrubbed of real truth, like most corporate failures. No mention of Clarissa. No admission of espionage. Just a name erased from the website and a photo replaced in the executive directory. But the whispers moved faster than press statements ever could. Ozmira's board opened an internal investigation. The Department of Justice followed 2 weeks later. Caleb disappeared into legal limbo, last seen in Miami entering a law firm with federal defense credentials and a track record for plea bargains. No more tailored suits. No more corner office. The man who thought he could engineer betrayal like a business merger now faced a much colder, more clinical machine. And Clarissa? Clarissa didn't fall with a bang. She unraveled. She was let go, quietly, from Ozmira. No severance. No public firing. Just a terminated contract and a severed email login. The industry didn't forgive her. HR circles whispered. Competitors kept their distance. Her resume became radioactive. Last I heard, she moved to Arizona and took a position teaching pharmaceutical marketing at a community college. Entry-level, low salary, no benefits. Word was she rented a studio apartment and sold her Audi to cover rent. She texted once. "You won. I hope it was worth it." I didn't reply. Because it wasn't about winning. It was about balance. About math. I became director of compliance at Ozmira 3 months after the dust settled. Quiet promotion. New office. New title. The same building where Clarissa once strolled in high heels like she owned the place. Now I sat 3 floors above her old department, cleaning up the fallout from the very fire she helped spark. The irony tasted better than revenge ever could. They called me the fixer. The guy who kept Ozmira off the front page. I never corrected them. Let them believe what they wanted. It was easier that way. Even Catherine didn't ask. She came into my life not long after Caleb's resignation. One of the attorneys from Ozmira's legal team, smart, grounded, with a wit as dry as my scotch. We met during a compliance audit and ended up debating ethics over coffee. The first time we laughed together, it felt foreign. Risky. But not unpleasant. She never pried into my past. She never asked about Clarissa, or the investigation, or why I sometimes went quiet when the sunset hit the windows just right. She let me breathe. I liked that about her. But even with Catherine, even with the new office, the fresh start, and the silence that finally replaced the chaos, I couldn't bring myself to delete the USB. It stayed locked in my desk, in a drawer I opened only when the air got too still. I didn't watch the full video every time. Just the last 30 seconds. Clarissa's face on the screen. Her voice calm, but her eyes flickering with something between defiance and exhaustion. If we're both liars, Marcus, who deserves to win? She never smiled in that clip. Never blinked. Just stared through the lens like she was still playing, even from the past. Sometimes I watched it trying to understand her. Other times, I watched it to remember what she cost me. But mostly, I watched it to remind myself that I wasn't innocent either. I had lied first. And in some twisted way, she'd only learned from the best. She had taken what I'd buried and sharpened it into her weapon. But she'd underestimated how deep I was willing to dig, how cold I could get when pushed into the quiet corners of betrayal. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clinical. I was analysis. Debrief. Reflection. And still, there was one piece left. One final weight in the balance. That night, the house was silent. Catherine had a late deposition downtown, and the city was quiet beneath the frost. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon, sat down in my home office, and opened the drawer. The USB gleamed like a whisper from the past. I plugged it in. The final clip loaded. I skipped to the end. Her words echoed. If we're both liars, Marcus, who deserves to win? I didn't answer her. Not with words. I minimized the window, opened my security app, and checked the live feed from the surveillance camera mounted above my front door. The lens panned slowly across the empty street. I leaned back, took a sip, and spoke softly. To win is never enough, I murmured. Not until everyone knows why you deserve to. A pause. And I have one move left. I closed the app. Shut down the USB. Locked the drawer. The truth was, the game was over. But some games don't end until the last player admits defeat. And I wasn't sure Clarissa ever would. Maybe she was still out there, waiting, hoping I'd slip, expose myself, give her a reason to strike again. Or maybe she was just another ghost now, one more lesson wrapped in silk and secrets. Either way, I was ready. They say forgiveness is strength. But not everyone who forgives is weak. And not everyone who betrays is the true villain. Some sins come dressed in apologies. Others wear silence like armor. In the end, it wasn't the loudest liar who won. It was the quietest man in the room. The one who waited. The one who listened. The one who moved last. Because in every game of deception, it's not who strikes first that matters. It's who walks away still standing.